Hey everyone, glad to be back with you all again. With one Mega Man Legends game done, we're off to the second. I remembered loving all the new areas you could explore and the enhancements to the controls which helped improve the gameplay immensely, but that was of course a very long time ago, and we've seen a lot of 3D action games come and go since then. So how does it feel to play now? Strap in, and we'll see just how well Mega Man Legends 2 for the PS1 holds up today! Released by Capcom in 2000, Mega Man Legends 2 is the sequel to the original PS1 game. Just like the original, Legends 2 is a 3D action-adventure game focusing heavily on story and action, with an additional element of exploration. It continues where the last game left off, with a ton of new characters and lore to expand on. If you were like me and slightly worried that the sequel might not follow up on all of the hints we were given about the game's lore in the first title, then I'm happy to say you can put those fears to rest. The story not only expands on the things we learned before, but does so right from the opening cutscene, showing you that this is not just going to be some kind of throwaway plot. So what is the premise this time? Professor Barrel Casket has met with Werner von Blücher, an old digging friend of his, to stage a voyage to an island called the Forbidden Island, using a giant airship called the Sulphur Bottom. The Motherlode, the famous treasure that everyone has been searching for, is believed to be there. During a meeting, a reporter, allegedly named Yuna, appears, who Barrel immediately recognizes to be Matilda Casket, or Roll's mother, who went missing years ago. But Barrel also realizes that something's wrong. Instead of acknowledging him or anyone else, she begins to warn them of an upcoming danger should they choose to pursue this venture, while acting like a completely different person altogether. She escapes, jumping onto a strange ship, asking the pilot Gats to fire warning shots at them. Those shots end up damaging the ship, however, forcing them to crash land. Following all of this, we finally cut to Mega Man and Roll watching the events from their airship, the Flutter, completely horrified by what they've witnessed. After heading out to go save them, Mega Man comes across a woman named Sarah and her servant Geets, who decide to come back with Mega Man and the Sulphur Bottom crew. From there, Sarah informs Von Blücher and the Professor that the Motherlode can be obtained by gathering 4 keys from various ruins in the world. It's up to Mega Man to collect these 4 keys while keeping the island safe from pirates, and try to solve the mysteries of the Motherlode and his enigmatic past once more. As you can already tell, there are a ton of changes to not only the areas you play and explore in, or the larger cast of characters, but in the controls and presentation as well. Instead of exploring one giant island like Catalox, with multiple ruins and connecting paths, you can now fly to multiple islands, each containing its own unique charms and special ruins. While this does make your exploration of each individual ruin a little more straightforward, it still feels pretty open-ended in general, and allows you to uncover far more items and refractors for your time. Another factor that makes the game's world feel much larger and more vast is the additional characters, both friends and foes. The new pirates, also trying to get in on the Motherlode, are especially welcome here. In addition to the Bonds, of whom were already loved by a majority of the fanbase, we now see characters like Glide, who commands an army of birdbots that are fun and different from the Servbots in their own hilarious ways. He first appeared as an enemy in the spin-off The Misadventures of Tronbon, but begrudgingly decided to work with them here. We also encounter Claymore and Bola, 2 veteran air pirates who joke about getting old a lot, while searching for the 4 keys that Mega Man's crew is after. Every one of these characters has their own unique charms and personality, making them all, once again, very memorable, even more so than the game's main characters, in my opinion. The graphics also show some improvement, as the characters now show far less blockiness than ever before, and their sharpness and facial animations are even more of a treat to behold. The characters' personalities, both old and new, all clash very well together too, especially in the case of the pirates. Their methods as a whole seemed a little more cruel than what we saw the Bonds try in the original Legends, but that would only make the stakes feel even higher during the boss fights with them. The environments are also much more varied than the original game, showcasing islands in heavy snow, green empty landscapes, small island bases, an underwater ruin, a volcanic underground ruin, and all kinds of other unique places. This is exactly the coat of paint that the original needed so desperately, and I was thrilled to see it pan out here. If you saw my video for the first Mega Man Legends, you'll recall that I said the game's biggest flaw was its gameplay mechanics and camera control. While I do still believe that to be the case here as well, I am happy to say that it is far improved this time around, to the point where it will still get in your way, but feel far less aggravating than it used to. Just as before, you can use the D-pad or analog stick to move forward, backward, left, and right, with the square button to fire, the triangle button to kick or use whatever special weapon you have equipped, the circle button to walk or hold down for using jet skates after you obtain them, and X to jump, with select being your menu button for your items and equipment. Here's what's changed this time around. Your special weapons actually show 2 meters on the side now, with the blue one representing the amount of energy you have for the weapon, and the green bar representing how much energy you use when holding down or pressing the triangle button. R2 is still used as a lock-on, but it has been heavily improved, allowing you to not only see a target reticle, which also displays whether or not you're close enough in range to hit the enemy, but allow you to move while remaining locked onto the target. This may seem like a small change, but it actually improves the combat significantly, as I no longer have to stand in place while firing, or hit the lock-on button for a quick second to find my target, only to let go of the button in order to actually fight it successfully. I can't even begin to tell you how important this one small change made to the game as a whole, and I couldn't be happier with the fact that it exists here. Now, don't get me wrong, as I said before, the gameplay still has its share of flaws, just as the first one did. While the lock-on function helps, controlling the camera itself is still pretty frustrating, and will get you stuck in corners or attacked by unseen enemies quite often. The biggest difference is that the lock-on mechanic allows you to be more strategic with your actions, which will at the very least lead you to far less untimely deaths. But there is one more change-up that will cause you to die more often. The game is exceptionally harder than its predecessor. In the original, you were pretty much forgiven for not going after the major upgrades in the game, at least until a certain point later on in the story. Here, you're punished for not staying on top of upgrading your weapons, health, and other items in time, and even then, you're still likely to run into some trouble. This is especially true regarding the game's boss fights, which require a lot more strategy than just run around and shoot like you were able to get away with before. It seems that the developers realized they could get away with increasing the game's overall difficulty, being as this is a sequel and the fixes to the lock-on system most likely had a hand in that decision as well. I don't mind this change at all, as you know I enjoy a good single-player challenge now and then, but it still caught me by surprise the first time playing, and I know it will throw off others as well. The game also has an interesting setup, where in order to get into all of the ruins, you have to pass tests to obtain the licenses to them. This is a little different from the original game's method of simply giving them to you as you progress through the game. While the first test for the A license is easy enough, the other test for the S-Class license is surprisingly challenging, and will likely take players a few tries before they can get through it all in the short time frame. Obtaining the license also causes tougher enemies to appear in some of the earlier ruins, where they might have been otherwise weaker beforehand. I will say I like the dynamic itself, as I don't know of many games that actually increase the strength of all its enemies after a certain level of progression, outside of maybe Demon Souls or Bloodborne, though I think the curve between getting the A license and S license is surprisingly large and might hold some people back from enjoying themselves a little. There's a few other small changes made to the gameplay, as Mega Man can now be hit with status effect-like attacks, capable of giving him continuous frost damage or even paralyzing his movements. There are upgrades that can limit or remove these effects, however. You'll also recall in my review of the first Mega Man Legends that I was happy about the change-ups in the gameplay that would occur during moments like the boat chase or the battle on top of your airship. I'm happy to say that there are even more interesting gameplay variations this time around, with most of them coming out strong. The beginning of the game has you putting out a large fire on your airship in a gameplay style that reminded me of Burning Rangers for the Sega Saturn. This segment has you trying to protect a giant statue from being destroyed by Teaselbon, or destroying it and finding him as is, but I just couldn't bear to do that.
That little punk! He didn't even care about the statue!
Really? I also got a kick out of this moment, where you had to help the Bonds by picking up enemies and tossing them into a large stone, in order to stop the lava in the area from flowing. Protecting this small base from being destroyed by Glide's pirate crew was also hectic and pretty fun once you got the hang of things. And then there's the train chase, right before the fourth and final ruin, where you have to fight against both Glide and the Bonds before being able to move forward. All of these segments were very memorable, and helped the game stand out even more. And just like the first game, there are plenty of other mini-games and side quests for you to go through in order to get more money and items. Some of these include a quiz game with random pop culture trivia, or another racing game where you have to beat your best times with the jet skates for Zenny. But you're probably wondering if the revelations in this game are as large as the ones we saw in the first Mega Man Legends. I am happy to say that not only are they larger than the little chunks we were given in Legends 1, but they're also far more in-depth and impactful as a result. As expected, everything comes to a head right after you obtain the last of the 4 keys. In fact, so much plot detail is thrown at you all at once that it's actually easy to miss a detail or two. With the keys recovered, Sarah begins an attack on the sulfur bottom, and orders Gats to go after the keys. Yuna also appears to talk with Mega Man, while Geats goes out to defend the ship. She gives Mega Man some information about his past as a purifier model, and explains that Sarah is trying to reinstate the carbon reinitialization program, a program meant to destroy all living beings on the planet, which Mega Man Juno also tried to activate in the first game. For some reason, Mega Man acts completely oblivious about this despite preventing that very thing from happening last time. Weird. After this, Mega Man goes out to fight Gats to the tune of some pretty awesome music.
Prepare yourself!
Once that's completed, we finally get some information on just what's been going on all this time, what information that Mega Man had put inside of Data for safekeeping, and more importantly, why he did it. In scenes from the past, we see Mega Man talking with a figure called the Master, who we later find out was the last of the original humans on Earth, or Terra, at the time. Before his death, he gave Mega Man a piece of his genetic code, and requested that he stop the carbon reinitialization program from occurring, by destroying the library system on Elysium, a small colony that orbits over Terra. The Master had witnessed the lives of the Carbons, which he may or may not have created, and determined that they should be saved. The people of Elysium saw this as an act of betrayal, and tried to track down the Master's genetic code. This is why Mega Man put all of his memory files into Data, as it would keep the code and memories of the incident locked away, so no one, including Mega Man, would be able to find them. It's after all of this that Mega Man decides to carry out the Master's final wish of stopping the reinitialization program, and taking down Sarah once and for all. From this point on, it's a race through the final areas of the game, all taking part on Elysium as you make your way toward the library. Yuna also reveals that she used the body of Roll's mother as a temporary vessel, and would give it back once their mission was completed. You could say that this next part of the game has a little classic Mega Man feel to it, as you take on all 4 of the major boss fights from the ruins once again. After clearing these and completing some puzzles involving the raising and lowering of gravity to reach certain areas, you finally come to the library, where Sarah's waiting. You'll recall that I said Mega Man Juno in the first Legends game was a pretty long and difficult fight. Well, I can confirm that this 2-part fight is by far the most difficult in the entire series. Even with multiple upgrades, you need to put an extreme amount of legwork into things. Sarah teleports and has attacks ranging from lock-on missiles all the way to lowering the gravity, creating a shockwave into the ground that's harder to avoid due to said gravity, and surrounds you with a bunch of destructible cubes all at once. But Sarah's not even done there. Oh no. As expected, the final battle is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm still shocked by how difficult it was. Sarah has a bunch of new attacks, including a large pink blast that can only be avoided with a properly timed dodge roll, multiple beams that you have to outrun, and lasers that shoot out from the bottom section and continue to chase you afterward. Add a ball of gravity that tries to pull you toward it, on top of an extremely small platform to work around all of this, and you've got yourself a frantic little battle. Even with my shining laser, I had to be extremely careful while fighting. Once Sarah is defeated, and you take a second to catch your breath, we get to the game's ending. Although the reinitialization program was never activated, as Sarah was only using the threat of it to lure Mega Man to her, machines on Terra are still being activated due to an old program that was built into Elysium. Yuna convinces Sarah to come back to them, explaining that the Master wouldn't want her, or anyone else, to die. But this leaves everyone, including Mega Man, in a bit of a situation. After Gats was destroyed earlier, it left everyone stranded on Elysium, without any kind of a ship to bring them back to Terra. While we do get a nice and humorous cutscene with Roll, Barrel, and the Bonds all working together to build a ship to Elysium, we never get to see the result of it. I think many of us had assumed we would see another game in the series to conclude these events, if nothing else, but unfortunately this was simply not meant to be. Capcom would proceed to cancel Mega Man Legends 3, go as far as to blame its own fanbase for not being large or enthusiastic enough, and leave Mega Man stranded on Elysium forever. I'd be lying if I said this doesn't still sting a little, even now. But we're not here to talk about things that make me want to crawl into a corner. We're here to talk about whether or not Mega Man Legends 2 holds up well. And the honest answer is that yes, it does, but with some caveats. The gameplay, which was considered the first game's biggest flaw, is heavily improved and far less frustrating to handle, but that doesn't mean it is without issues. Controlling the camera is still a pain, and the ruin environments, while much nicer in appearance, are still generally blocky hallways by design. It didn't stop me from exploring and enjoying myself, but I could see others getting tired of it before long. And there's also the difficulty spike. The game is significantly harder than its predecessor, and I think there are some gamers who simply won't be able to make it to the end, or those who would at least have a much harder time doing so. And then there's this underwater ruin. Look, I understand and even like the idea of a ruin where you can jump higher to reach new places when underwater, but the speed you move during this segment is embarrassingly slow. I covered every nook and cranny of both of these ruins just to ensure I'd never have to visit them again. Yeesh. But everything else about it is still as great as you could have hoped for. The graphics look very nice and keep a nice and distinctive style, despite the 3D blockiness. The story is excellent and draws you into the mystery behind Mega Man's past and the world itself beautifully. The world of the game is distinct, with all kinds of different locations to keep things from boring you. The extra game content is large and varied, giving you plenty of things to do, and most of all, the personality is still there. The characters you knew and loved from the original are all here once again, giving us more of the things we already loved, alongside the excellent new characters who fit into the mix just as well.
Trigger, I'm sorry. I have failed. You are our only hope.
If you enjoyed the original, this is another must-play, and there's simply no other way to say it. While it's easy to lament on the fact that we're not getting a third game to round things out, I am still very happy with what we were given, and believe that the series actually deserved the great reputation that its fanbase has been keeping alive all this time. If you love the Blue Bomber and are not totally put off by some bad 3D camera controls, then you owe it to yourself to pick this up and see just why it captured so many gamers' hearts, among my own. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have you played this game yourself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're feeling generous, please consider donating to my Patreon, where awesome people like Brandon, Thomas, Johan, CLO, and Andrew all help to keep this channel alive. Until next time.